Mike Murray.
This is SNL.
SNL.
By the numbers.
Numbers.
Sarah with the teeth. Where did you get that baby? Wham bam. Thank you, Ham. There's the opening haiku for you. I am your host, Mike Murray, and this is SNL By The Numbers, the home of SNL stats. Tonight we are covering episode 985 of Saturday Night Live with host Jon Hamm, musical guest Lizzo. This podcast is a presentation of latenighter.com. So if you're keeping track, that means 15 episodes till 1,000. Bring in my first guest. Love talking to this gentleman. It's Thomas Sena. How do you feel about 15 episodes till 1,000?
It's going to be a long wait. I don't know. They have all summer to plan ahead and really please all the super fans, but that's insane. 1,000. I think I've seen at least two of them in the last couple weeks. So
seen a couple. Yeah. Have you heard my prediction? I'm predicting that it's going to be the Super Bowl weekend because the Super Bowl is on NBC. It's Super Bowl 60 and it's the Olympic opening ceremony. And it's like, I think you could squeeze in an SNL on that Saturday between opening ceremony and Super Bowl 60.
That's a safe bet. Yeah. Corporate energy.
Yeah, definitely. Just get the branding for NBC. Just big time. My next guest, you've heard him, you've seen him. He's from the Not Ready for Primetime Project. It's Brad Robinson. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here. Apparently, it's the only show on the Saturday Night Network I'm allowed on. So thank you for having me on. Ooh. Thomas Sena has carte blanche. I know he can go on any show.
All of them. Yeah.
I am a Mike Murray true and true. So thank you for having me back.
No problem there, Brad. We have it's April 16th. So I know you like to go back in time often on your show. So we're going to go back in time on this date. Put that chicken dinner back in the time microwave. So first of all, 1977, season 2, episode 19. It's Elliot Gould becomes the third three-time host. Garrett Morris joins the Coneheads, and Bill Murray's Nick the Lounge Singer makes his debut. Going over to 1983, season 8, episode 18. Susan St. James returns to host. This time, though, she's now the wife of executive producer Dick Ebersol. Wonder how she got that second time back. She actually met Dick Ebersol at the first time, so a pretty great story. They're still married to this day. She would later co-star with Jane Curtin in the CBS sitcom Kate and Allie. Seventh and final appearance of Eddie Murphy's Velvet Jones until he would return to host 35 years later in 2019. 1994, it's season 19 with Emilio Estevez and Pearl Jam. So he's in the house promoting the film debut of future cast member Kenan Thompson with D2, The Mighty Ducks. In his monologue, Emilio gives us some updates on his Brat Pack co-stars like Molly Ringwald, saying that she had a sex change and Anthony Michael Hall is in jail, which is kind of weird now because they just had a 40th reunion of The Breakfast Club this week, and he's with those two, and Anthony Michael Hall being a former cast member. Kevin Nealon, in one of his last few episodes, anchoring Update, gives us one more Mr. Subliminal while he's in the cast, which is pretty cool.
I think there was a caning sketch. I think that was the cold open, possibly. That really puts you back into 1994. Somebody got caned in Singapore. I think that was the Emilio episode.
Yeah, and then also we had his real-life brother, Charlie Sheen, call in to the How Much You Bench sketch, and they have all the roided out bros with the skinny legs, and they all have those fake skinny legs. But for some reason, they decided to just keep David Spade's real legs. So I wonder who made that decision. Going over to 2005, one of my all-time favorite episodes, huge moment for me. It's Tom Brady with Beck and season 30. He's fresh off his third Super Bowl win in 4 years. We have the 7th edition of The Falconer. This is a huge Will Forte episode because he's also has that carnival sketch. Tom Brady trying to, throw the football and can't hit anything. And, not even close, worse than the previous throw, all that stuff. The sexual harassment PSA, Tom Brady's Falafel City. We see Sudeikis break out in the Super Bowl shuffle. And that moment alone got him into the cast late that season to usher in the next golden era. And Martin Short makes his only appearance as Jiminy Glick on SNL, opposite Will Forte as Lorne Michaels. And then we go over to 2016. We have JLD in the house, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, former cast member, appearing as Elaine Bennis in the cold open, alongside Larry David as Bernie Sanders, joined by Veep co-star Tony Hale in the monologue. We have the first appearance of Pete Davidson's Chad way back in 2016. So happy 9th birthday to Chad. And finally, season 47, it's 2022. Lizzo doing double duty. We just saw her this past week as musical guest. We have the Black Eyed Peas sketch, the Six Flags guy. Great PDD. Lizzo has writer's block, and Melissa's final appearance and week update as Cesar Perez, Collins driver, and the 10-1, the big Dismukes moment with Steve's Beanie Babies, Thomas Sena. I feel like I remember you having been there that night. So
yes,
go back to present day, and that was back in time. But
God,
2022 with Thomas.
3 years ago. That seemed like it was just yesterday. Yeah, my wife and I got to see dress rehearsal for that Lizzo episode. And I seem to remember, well, one, the Beanie Babies sketch was like my favorite of the night. And I just loved like Andrew Dismukes' humor there. And I was treated, this is SNL karma, because throughout the years I wasn't a huge fan of Baby Yoda, of Kyle Mooney's Baby Yoda. I would get on the podcast, talk crap about it. So
Hot take.
Yeah, I know, right? We were treated to Baby Yoda during dress, and it got cut on air. So that was like my kind of like SNL, like bad SNL karma, was they gave me Baby Yoda, and then they just didn't air it. So I was one of 300 or so people to have seen Baby Yoda that night.
Top 3 favorite jokes from that sketch.
Of the Baby Yoda? Jeez, I don't know. He was challenging Baby Groot to a fight. Maybe was that a thing?
Yeah, was that Lizzo's character?
I don't know. I think so. Yeah, Lizzo did appear, didn't she? Oh man, yeah. I'm trying to block that out.
Yeah. So, but Kyle did get his Baby Yoda back on before he rode off into the SNL sunset. So we were treated to one more of those. Brad, are you a Kyle Mooney fan?
Yeah, I like Kyle. He had that nice sort of weirdness to him that I appreciated, in the era when I liked his brand of humor. He kind of did off the wall. I liked the pre-tapes he did a lot too. They were really fun.
Yeah, he just has a very interesting career trajectory, because somebody who never really broke through, but is very memorable, I think, too. If you watch the era, is that everyone knew Kyle, and when a Kyle piece got on, it felt like a moment. I don't know. That's kind of how I remember about Kyle.
Yeah. As much crap as I talked about Baby Yoda, I actually really do like Kyle, and I like his weird kind of nervous energy sometimes, I guess. And I think I've just started to appreciate him more after he left the show, going back and rewatching sketches and stuff. So really good, I think underappreciated cast member.
Definitely, and I put Beck Bennett in there as well, because they came in together, the Good Neighbor guys, and we got to see Kyle this season, and now this week we got to see Beck Bennett back on the show in a pre-tape. So let's talk about the screen time and our takes, our scolding hot takes on season 50, episode 17. Of course, Jon Hamm back. It's his 4th time there. He gave us a little SNL stats in the monologue, so that's been a kind of a theme this year. They haven't mentioned By the Numbers yet, but we're still waiting. They keep quoting these stats. At least they got it right this time. 14 cameos he made, excluding some voiceovers. But yeah, 14 times he came back, not hosting. This time he did host. He had 16 minutes, 41 seconds. And if you don't include the musical intros of Lizzo, that's tied for 3rd lowest this season. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. Mikey Day leading the cast, first of all, as Jesus in the cold open. A lot of time there, but overall, 10 minutes, 39 seconds over 6 appearances. Right behind him is Andrew Dismukes, 10 minutes 3, tied with Sarah Sherman, 10 minutes 3. Dismukes did have 1 extra appearance in Sarah with 6. Sarah had 5. Emil Wakim, 4 appearances and 9 minutes 5 seconds. Huge moment on update. And a shout out from the president himself, featuring Emil Wakim in the cold open. Lizzo, our musical guest, 2 performances, 2 sketch appearances, 8 minutes 41 seconds. Ego Wodum right behind, 8 minutes 24 seconds. Michael Longfellow, 6 minutes 49 seconds. So we're seeing a pattern here. Lots of garbage time when you get those tableau Trump sketches, because you're just on screen frozen. You're racking up the stats. So we love to see it late in the season to get those numbers up. Colin Jost on update, 6 minutes 26. James Austin Johnson in that aforementioned Tableau sketch, 6 minutes 8 seconds total. He made one other appearance as Trump in the White POTUS pre-tape. Bowen Yang, 6 minutes 7 seconds. He brought Chen Biao back for the 6th time. Haven't seen him in a while. So, it's Bowen's most prolific character. Speaking of recurring characters on update, Chen Biao back in a timely fashion for the trade war. Keenan Thompson, 5 minutes 24 seconds and 3 appearances. Jane Wickline, 3 appearances, 5 minutes 15 seconds. Devin Walker, 4:55, 2 appearances. Michael Che, 3:54 on update. Heidi Gardner, 3 minutes 50 and 4 appearances. Ashley Padilla, with scene stealer again, the 10-1. 3 minutes 22 seconds over 4 appearances. Ben Marshall kind of getting the lead role for a PDD pre-tape with the missing person with Jon Hamm. He had 1:18. Chloe Feynman, 53 seconds. Did not see her live, only in the pre-tapes this week. Kieran Culkin popping in the monologue. Saw him in the crowd last week for Jack Black, and he made his way downstairs from the bleachers this week. 49 seconds. John Higgins, 40 seconds in PDD. Marcelo Hernandez with a lowest week of the season, 38 seconds. Martin Herlihy of PDD, 36 seconds. Alex Moffat back as well. So I want to get some Moffat takes from the gents here. He had 30 seconds. Steve Higgins, 4 voiceovers, 30 seconds. Beck Bennett back as Vladimir Putin, 22 seconds, sorry. Scarlett Johansson back as Ivanka Trump, 12 seconds. And writer Ali Levitan as the tied-up girl behind the Weekend Update backdrop. We saw Sarah Sherman free her at the end of her segment. So 11 seconds of some tied up hands behind Jost and Shay right there for Allie. And there is your screen time lineup for week 17. Brad, over to you. Who stands out to you? Who do you want to talk about from this episode?
I mean, I like the Mikey Day up there. It's funny you mentioned it though, that cold open give a lot of people a lot of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of red on this
garbage time, as you called it. But Mikey Day up there high is nice to see him and Dismukes. I got to say, both those guys.
Yeah, so Mikey Day with 10:39. He had his biggest week of the season with Chalamet with over 14 minutes. So this would be his second best episode of the year. Mikey has definitely fallen down the rankings after being, kind of like a Keenan-like stature the past 2 years of SNL stats. So Mikey Day is having a little bit of a comeback, and it definitely helps when it's Easter time, apparently. Thomas, what about you? Who do you want to talk about?
Yeah, you mentioned the scene stealer earlier. I want to talk about Ashley Padilla. And it surprised me. I looked at 3 minutes and 22 seconds. I feel like her presence was felt a lot more than her screen time. I feel like she made the most out of her screen time, especially with that 10-1 with the icebreaker sketch. She was awesome. Like she was a good sometimes people complain about putting a hat on a hat, and it could have been this, but I think her energy went well with Jon Hamm's energy in that sketch. Like I think she played it perfectly. And Ashley, I heard John say this recently, and she has the most potential, I think, of any new cast member I've seen in a long time. It's almost one of those where you know it when you see it. And I think she was almost built in a lab to be good on SNL. And I think she has the potential to, like, honestly be an all-time great on the show. That's what I see in Ashley. So I see, like, she's down on the list in screen time, but I think her presence was felt so much. She's turning into, like, maybe she and Andrew are like my 2 favorite cast members already.
I don't disagree. I want to get Brad's take because I don't get to talk modern SNL with Brad that often, but I'm like falling in love as an SNL fan with Ashley Padilla. Been talking a ton about her background being with the Groundlings, and that it's kind of just refreshing to not see a stand-up being a featured player and seeing somebody who can be a scene stealer and not a joke writer. So when you see somebody like that just being the most bare utility player and just punching up a line with the performance, not with the actual words. So that's been happening a lot. And she's, ranks 13th in a cast of 17 in screen time. So she's ahead of Longfellow, Emil, Jane, and Devin in screen time. So Ashley's been racking up the stats. So Brad, over to you. What do you think about Padilla rookie year?
Oh, I think she's great. I think everything Thomas said is right on. She does a really stellar job. And not to ask you to do even more work, Mike, but it would be interesting to see what this ranking was without all those people standing frozen in the cold open, because she would obviously move up a lot, I think, in this episode's ranking. And to Thomas's point, her ranking would warrant how much you felt her, because you've got somebody like Wickline was frozen for most of her time on set, or I just feel like she utilized her time so well in that sketch. And I feel like all three of them, her and Wickline, and Emil,
I'd
they're
say
all
Brad,
doing really good.
Average for the people in the background. They varied a little bit because of the camera work, and some had lines, some didn't. So average about 5 minutes, 15, 20. So if you want to subtract from the cold open the red on the chart, you can really kind of get a more true answer right there. And that's why we do the power ranking, because you can't, the garbage time kind of can inflate that, and otherwise Colin Jost would win every year with screen time. So that's why we do that stat. So if you want to subtract like about 5 minutes from each,
about 5.
So Ashley might have been around where Ego then is, like Ego and around there.
Which
definitely.
Which feels her presence in the show, like when you walk away from it, would make sense. I buy it. But I like all three. I think all three of them are doing a great job. I love how especially they're using update to their advantage, and getting the update segments and getting their face out there like the old school time. So I love all three of these new ones.
Thomas, how have you felt about Emil getting his second weekend update feature? So he had one early in the year. He had one this week. Bit of a comeback, even if you subtract that cold open. They're very far apart, but they're both as himself. As I mentioned, those new stand-up like Devin, Marcelo, Longfellow, and now add Emil in the mix, doing that type of piece.
Yeah, this was a really great piece, and it benefits from a rewatch too. I think this whole episode benefits from a rewatch. It was good upon first watching, like this update piece included, but this whole episode and this update piece in particular was just so good. And that Lauren has said that, that's update's a good way for a new cast member to speak to the audience, to introduce themselves, to say their name, so I think Emil knocked it out of the park, and I think it was brave. There was a lot of brave content in this. Like, he's almost saying truths that a lot as Americans we don't want to confront always, like maybe we're complicit or we benefit from some of the things in society that aren't always on the up and up or great. Like the beats of that were just so perfect about how he everything's going great until you have to meet your the food delivery guy, and he says, I opened it just like a racist amount. If I'm being honest, so just a lot of it was just very brave material, and he delivered it so perfectly. I think he delivered it in a disarming way. I was so impressed by this.
I love that imagery, Thomas. the door opening, because everyone pictured it.
Exactly.
Just enough to get the burrito in, and you match the accent.
Yeah.
And Colin even said, I look forward to the YouTube comments. So and his first piece too, speaking on the most touchy subject of the year, with talking about the ability to to exploit your sexuality or to be gay in Gaza and stuff. It's that was his first thing. So this almost seems a little more tame in comparison, but just, and also calling New York City, if capitalism was a place. Just because you live in Brooklyn.
Just because you live in Brooklyn. That line was great.
There's an M&M store next to a church. We're in hell.
This is hell. So speaking of Chloe Fineman, we have a milestone alert, because just under 2 minutes away. So when we come back in May with Quinta Brunson, she's just under 2 minutes away from hitting 6 career hours of screen time, which doesn't seem like a lot when you came in season 45, but that it is a lot. We talk about see the screen time charts every week, and talk about Ashley getting 322 or Heidi getting 350. It sounds small, but that's kind of how the show works. When you have about 62 minutes of available time you can get on screen, and just making those moments count. So Chloe Fineman coming up to 6 hours, and Heidi Gardner, we just celebrated her 500th appearance, I feel like yesterday, with the Rami Youssef show last year, but she's now 13 appearances away from 600. So hopefully we get that by the end of the year. So we have 3 shows left. Brad, what do you think? Will Heidi get 13 appearances in the next 3 shows?
You gotta think. The
Oh,
odds are in
4
her
and
favor.
change.
Yeah.
And I hope Heidi's back in 51, but it'd be nice to hit that 600 if she does choose to leave. And speaking of Ashley, made her 50th appearance of the year. It's pretty good for a rookie in that White POTUS pre-tape. And Ego she hit 9 hours of career screen time, so she's only season behind Chloe and is at 9 hours. So that you can show the difference between Ego and Chloe, I guess, right there in the Check to Check news show sketch with Jon Hamm. So she hit 9 hours right there. And just a fun one here. Sarah Sherman became the 46th SNL cast member to say live from New York 10 times. So out of all the cast, 46 of them have said live from New York at Saturday night 10 or more times. So she now joins that elite list. So, Brad, what did you think about Jon Hamm's first sketch about that choice right there? That Check to Check news show.
I went back and forth on this one. I liked it. It was smart. I liked the idea. This just shows how dumb I am, though. They ran the ticker at the bottom, which was really funny. And so I was like trying to follow the ticker and read the ticker, and my mind couldn't follow the ticker and watch the sketch at the same time. So that's just me not being smart. But they were like adding so many things to it that it all worked really well.
I think the ticker, they ended up repeating a lot of the same
They
stuff.
They did. Finally, I caught on. I'm like, okay, good. I'm caught up, and I can go back to the sketch. But it was fun. I love Ego. She was great. She's so good in this.
They did have some things going with like a red arrow down too. I was like, I thought it should all be green arrows going.
No, that's why. Oh, it was so funny. Yeah. It was like 7-Eleven hot dogs, like Chef Boy. It was just so weird.
Rent.
Yeah, Rent.
So I want to pivot, Thomas, to talking about Jon Hamm. So if I'm understanding correctly, he's like one of your all-time favorite hosts, right?
Oh yeah, top 5 or 10 for me, just personal favorites. But I think he is in like rarefied air of just quality SNL hosts. I think he's objectively one of the 10 or 15 best SNL hosts ever, but he's in my personal like 5 to 10 favorites. So I was pumped when I saw his name appear. I didn't think we were ever going to see him back. It was like 3 consecutive years, and then we just hadn't seen him in a long time. So this was like my most pleasant surprise of the season, quite frankly, was to see Jon Hamm come back to host.
Why do you think he hasn't hosted like 6-7 times by now?
Who knows? Schedules didn't align. Maybe he only had time. Like, he's cameoed a lot. Obviously, that was like part of the premise of his monologue. But maybe he only had time to just come in and cameo because he was busy that week. I don't know. Who knows the tricky machinations that happened behind the scenes? But it seemed like he would have done it. Like, it's not because he didn't want to do it. I wouldn't think. It's probably just scheduling for whatever odd reason didn't quite work out, and maybe he hit a lull, like he wasn't promoting stuff like after Mad Men, but now he's everywhere. So I think it's a good, like, they're striking while the Jon Hamm iron is hot, I guess, right now.
Yeah, and Brad, over to you. Is he, in the history of the show, is he, tier wise? You have your Alex and your Steves, you have your Buck Henrys. I'd put them easily, stats alone, up top. Of course, they're all timers. So, and he's not a 5-timer yet, Jon Hamm. Could be soon. So is he in the very next tier, or would you say like a 3rd tier?
I think you'd put him in that 2nd tier. It's, it's obviously a bit of think of a wider tier than that top tier, but he'd definitely be in it. To Thomas's point too, unfortunately, the show's kind of evolved where they don't have friends on all that much just to hang out and do the show. This isn't like John Goodman doing 13 years in a row for no reason, or Baldwin. So like you said, Thomas, if he doesn't have anything to push, the show's not, unfortunately, dying to get him on like they might have 20 years ago, because he easily could have done that. He easily could have been a guy who showed up every year, even if he had nothing to do, and would give you quality episodes every week. So I agree with Thomas. It was great to see him back on.
I agree. And somebody who clearly has, Thomas mentioned scheduling maybe, but like the availability doesn't seem like a problem. And somebody also personally, when he does cameo, I'm never not happy about it. Like, I'm always just psyched to see Jon Hamm. The premiere a couple years ago with the Manning cast, we just randomly saw, Jon Hamm pop up. Like, oh, this is great. I was already excited for a new season of SNL, and then Jon Hamm, and then for some reason Shaun White was in that one too. So that's just a great well to go to. And yeah, looking back at Jon Hamm's other appearances, so as Thomas mentioned, he's in season 34 with Coldplay, and then season 35, of course, with Michael Bublé, Ham and Bubbly, and then season 36. So like that is we might see that with Nate Bargatze. We could see that with like being 3 in a row, but it's something that doesn't happen too often. We saw with Mulaney doing it a lot in a row. So, I mean, to get that type of start and then not come back for a while, I'll put it out there. I'm just glad it happened when it at all. But let's talk about his usage. Yeah. So let's talk about this though. The low usage though, like we've waited this long. I feel like Jack Black had a great comeback. And then Jon Hamm really, he's tied with Charlie XCX for screen time, not including music. So I would think someone like who's doing double duty, who's never hosted SNL, would have way lower screen time than a great like Jon Hamm. So Brad, what do you think about the usage in this week?
I think he's used just fine. I don't take the numbers in this. He was in practically everything, and they used Jon Hamm how they needed to use Jon Hamm. I feel like, which is a wise move. You know him. You know what his strengths are. You know what he could do. I would not have guessed his numbers were that low just by watching the episode. He was in so much. You felt him throughout the entire show. There's so many episodes where I feel like you're kind of like, where'd the host go or what happened for a couple of sketches? And I'm trying to think, was there anything he wasn't in besides Update?
No, just Cold Open and Update.
Yeah. So he's
Who did he play in the White Lotus?
He was
RFK
Jr.
RFK,
he was
yes.
a great RFK.
Yes, he was really good. Yeah, he
Really?
had the voice really down
That's what
well.
I'm saying. Like they used him perfect amount for that particular sketch, and I feel like they did that all night. They used him exactly as much as they needed to, and he excelled every time they called on him.
Let's talk about live sketches, though. I feel like we see Jon Hamm and think about some really good live material, and that's going to be the 254 in the Check to Check sketch with Ego, 232 in the Guess the Correct Answer, which I think in my rewatch doing stats, and every sketch I watch like 5 or 6 times and to kind of get the nuances of it. That one had the best improvement for me, just because watching it live, I'll be honest, sometimes game show sketches, I just feel like I know the beats before they happen. And this one, I just think Jon Hamm made it a better sketch than, Host X. That kind of, Thomas, you're a sports guy. Like wins above replacement.
Yep.
The WAR stat in baseball. Like when I started the power ranking, I was kind of thinking about that as how much better are they than the average host? And that was a sketch where I thought he was better than the average host.
Yeah, I agree, and that was a flimsy premise for sure. Like super flimsy premise that Jon just totally elevated, and that's a mark of a great host. Number one, like I said, elevating a sketch. A lot of hosts just sort of like hold on for dear life throughout the week and throughout the show, but Jon, you can tell he's really comfortable, and I think. To Brad's point, like I don't really look at the screen time, the raw numbers, and say, oh, that was a successful hosting gig or not. Like they used Jon like he was a great cast member. Like he fit in as like a really great cast member, which makes sense because he fits in like a cast member. And that's probably cliche to say about some of the great hosts, but like you could just tell like Jon didn't need to be the star of the show. Like they didn't need to build the entire show around him like they would say like I don't know, Kim Kardashian or something like that. Like I get a feeling they would just write anything and Jon, would just be like, yeah, I'm game. Let's go. Let's do it. I can fit in here. I can do. Like, he takes pride in even playing like a glue guy in a certain sketch. And yeah, he just reminded me of like just a really supremely great cast member. And I don't need to see. Maybe they should have put him in the cold open, but bump those numbers up to 21 minutes. Like I would actually like to see that. I would have loved to see
Frozen Jon Hamm.
Yeah, Frozen Jon Hamm and JJ riff on Jon Hamm or something. I don't know if that would have stepped on the monologue, but they probably could have found other material that wasn't in the monologue. But I actually would have liked to see Jon Hamm in the cold open now that I think about it.
Well, speaking of his RFK Jr., I mean, that could have been a chance for him to do that if you're going to do political material.
Sure.
If he's not playing himself. But yeah, that game show sketch was the 4th shortest live sketch of the year, excluding the 10-to-1s. So it was a quick in and out. But moving on to new parents, he was 2 minutes 14 and then 2 minutes 16 in that 10-1 icebreaker. So, if you add it all up together, it's just a lot of that. I mean, he's kind of the focus, but it was quicker material than we've seen this year. So excluding the long stand-up monologues, like we've seen a lot of hosts this year. So I think that's been an emphasis to put that forward. And I've been seeing that trajectory actually get higher in recent years as the host has been put forward more. So to see maybe a fourth timer come in, I expected Jon Hamm to just have like maybe, an easy 20-minute night. So surprising, but definitely nothing against him there. So Brad, anyone else in the cast you want to talk about from this week?
No, I was kind of surprised Bowen was less than I thought. I was kind of going in. I thought I'd see more Bowen. That was kind of maybe the only surprise.
Have you had enough Bowen, not enough Bowen, too much this year? Because
I love
he's
Bowen.
definitely, he's probably my favorite cast member. So
yeah, I mean, I could watch Keenan for an hour and a half, but I love Bowen. I think Bowen does a great job, but it's very few things he does I don't like, so I could always watch him.
Yeah, so Bowen finishing with a 6 minutes 7 this week and 5:37 last week, coming off 2 strong episodes with Gaga and the Mikey Madison show. He really only had one down week, which was Shane Gillis. Could have been his season 45 classmate there. But Bowen has been kind of, we've been saying it all year, like is the star of season 50, and it's going to be we get to the end of the show, talk about power rankings. It's going to be a really tight race, and it's going to almost not feel right if Bowen Yang doesn't get the crown this year. So Thomas, over to you for final thoughts on this week and this cast.
Yeah, well, I wanted to stay with Bowen actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this whole episode really sums up my relationship as a viewer with Bowen. I've run hot and cold kind of with him, and this episode was almost to me like the duality of Bowen in a way. I thought he was really good in the live sketches. I loved him in the baby sketch, the spiritual sequel to We're Trying, I think.
With Adam Driver.
With Adam Driver, yeah. So I thought Bowen was really great in that. I enjoyed him in like the live sketches he was in. Chen Bao never. It's white noise when he does that character on Update to me. I just could never connect with anything that he's saying. It's like I don't know why that character. People seem to really like it, but I've never connected with that character. It's really just it's like the Peanuts teacher talking at me when he does that character. But that's just Bowen for me. Sometimes, like, I appreciate Bowen. I listen to his podcast. He and Matt Rogers are great. I like him, but there's just sometimes on the show, it's kind of runs hot and cold a little bit for me.
Fair enough. I'm looking at like the primetime stats, just thinking about putting the stars forward and stuff, and I feel like Bowen just everywhere in the show. He's like, I'm looking at his like season line right now on my screen and seeing him just literally popping up in every facet of the show. So if we talk about star quality in any cast in any era, I think that's what we're going to go with. Is you have to be live sketch dominant, and then you have to be able to do the cold opens and weekend updates. You don't see very many like pre-tape heroes that are the star. Like we saw like Chris and Pete kind of do that, but they never were the dominant SNL, person of that era for anything. So we should talk about somebody we haven't really mentioned. I did mention him a little bit because he had another 10-minute week, but that's an SNN hero here. If you're a member of Dismukes Nation, please stand up, because we're going to talk about the career of one Andrew Vinny Dismukes. So Thomas, over to you first. I feel like you're a big fan.
He's my favorite cast member, and he has been for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Ashley is creeping up there, but Andrew's been my favorite cast member for a while now. And I'm just kind of trying to pour over the stats now. I hope he's remembered fondly when his SNL career is over. I feel like Andrew isn't going to be one of those, like, he's not going to be like Will Ferrell or Bill Murray or Eddie, where people are like, oh, he's an all-time great and on these lists of top 10. But I feel like Andrew should be appreciated for like establishing his own niche and voice. I think he has the most distinct voice I think, in the cast, really. Like, I can tell, like, he's one of the few cast members. It's like Mikey, but Mikey's more so like Mikey reacts kind of thing. But I think Andrew, I can tell it's an Andrew Dismukes sketch just by tone and how witty it is. So I hope he's remembered as somebody who has like a really distinct voice, and say like I'm thinking like a Will Forte type. You know, Will Forte was more like maybe manic energy in a lot of ways. I think Andrew's like Will Forte, or even, you know, I think his voice is almost like a Jack Handy kind of voice. I can see Andrew playing really well with like a Jack Handy type of writer back in the day. So I just hope that Andrew's remembered as having a really just distinct voice, really clever, kind of like odd in a lot of ways, but he's just awesome. I love Andrew.
So I want to go over right now. I have his entire career. It's always fun when I get to just, I call it a stat dump. Just put it all out there. So if you ever wanted to have an Andrew Dismukes stat, this is the week to look on the screen with us on YouTube, because I have everything he's ever done right here. So 96 episodes into his SNL career. To be fair, I did not count his cast stats because they want to skew the averages here. So I want to give a little bio. You know, born in Texas from Jefferson County, grew up on the Gulf Coast near Louisiana, you know, from Cajun descent. We've got a little bit of that here and there. He's thrown into some sketches. He's, you know, one of only 6 SNL cast members born in Texas. Brad or Thomas, can you name any other SNL cast members that were born in Texas? On the spot, I'll come back to you. He's hired as a writer for season 43 at only the age of 22. Joined in 2020, the COVID season, and 46, promoted 2 years later in 48. You know, some of his writing credits that you might remember were the Ryan Gosling Fliplets. That was his first episode as a writer. The James Franco Spelling Bee that I use this clip on the show a lot with, Little Pig Boy. I like that one. Saoirse Ronan, The Floribama Shore, and of course, Adam Driver, Del Taco. So if you're all out of cash, you know, you remember that one. And he's the last remaining member of the season 46 class. So he came with Punky Johnson and Lauren Holt. He's at 293 appearances, but 288 are in the cast. So going with the cast stats here. Screen time per appearance, 1:12. Average per episode, 3:35. And this is the stat I really want to get to before I go to Brad. This is his screen time average per episode by season. So I'll give my, you know, disclaimer here. This is the stats that you want to see if you're an SNL cast member. Going to go from 46 to 50 average screen time per episode. He jumps up to each minute every season. First season in 46, 1:47. He ranked 17th in that giant cast coming back from COVID. Season 47, 2:46 per episode, ranked 15th. Season 48, 3:34 screen time, ranked 12th. Season 49, big jump to 4:16 per episode, ranked 8th. And now, season 50, 5:55 per episode, he's ranking 4th. So the ranks again, 17th, 15th, 12th, 8th, 4th. Brad Robinson, Andrew Dismukes, what say you? I don't know why I'm talking about this last night. I'm being a game show host tonight, I guess.
You know, it's funny Thomas mentioned Jack Handy, because when we started talking about Dismukes and you brought him up and trying to figure out like who he reminded, who he could play. And tell me how wrong I am on this, but I Kevin Nealon keeps coming to mind. And you mentioned Jack Handy. You know, I think Dismukes plays a great straight man, but can also play weird and oddballs when needed, and kind of does it all. And kind of like Kevin Nealon, like had what you just said, Mike, like had this slow rise in his numbers. And I've always tied him to that era with this new opening when he does that Dennis Miller runaway in the opening credits sequence now. So I had this kindred spirit of him like being in that, connected to that old cast somehow. But yeah, it's interesting to see those numbers and how much he's increased over those last few seasons.
Agreed. And let's look at his breakdown, because I've been calling it this season, and with affection, a Dismukes stat. We talked about some, you know, being live, Jon Hamm, like, you know, on camera. It's nothing against pre-tape performers or update performers, but for the most part, it's got to be, you know, either the pre-tapes, you can do multiple takes. With Weekend Update, you can kind of control your own rhythm. It's, you know, written sometimes from your own stand-up act. But this season, he leads the cast in live sketches, 47. So not including pre-tapes, cold open, monologue, update. Behind him is Bowen with 41. So right now, Dismukes is ahead by 6. But in his whole career, I do have the breakdown. It's kind of like quarterback splits here. Like, where do you see Dismukes in a percentage right there? 29 cold opens. That's 11.8% of the screen time. He's been in 3 monologues. First of which was that Maya Rudolph monologue in 46. She brought the 3 rookies out there and immediately dismissed Dismukes and just kept Lauren and Punky on home base with her. So that's the one that sticks out to me. But live sketches, 180. So Andrew Dismukes has had 4 hours, 4 minutes, and 55 seconds of live sketch. That's 71.3% of his screen time. So if you're a Dismukes fan, I'd probably gather to, surmise about you that you're kind of a traditionalist SNL guy, that you like the live sketches more than maybe the other aspects of the show, because it's kind of the bread and butter of SNL. Thomas, you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's well said. 6 update appearances. That's it. I want to see him on update a lot more. He has a couple of my favorite, almost like nihilistic or kind of sad, like funny, sad update appearance. Like this year when he brought in the puppet and that was his dad.
Great one.
That was awesome. And I think it flew over a lot of people's heads. Like when during the live show, because I got like a lukewarm reaction, it seemed like, but it was brilliant. That was like his way of finally hearing "I love you" from his dad, or "I'm proud of you" from his dad, like in puppet form. And then he did the one with it was like a Super Bowl prediction. What animal was it that he had?
The octopus.
The octopus. That was awesome.
Predicted his death.
Yes, it predicted Andrew's death. So that was like, I think, that's just like those 2 things encapsulate like why I really like Andrew, and I want to see him on update more. But I think his hit rate on update is almost like pretty much flawless.
Yeah, his first one was at the end of his rookie season. He finally got onto update in a really tricky year. So a lot of the season 46 rookies just had these like really down the dumps numbers because smaller sketches and big, huge cast. It's just a weird year and also an election year. And he had that one, episode 19. He came on as himself. One of his first things, I mentioned he's from Texas. He just said, I'm from Texas, and expected an applause and got nothing. He's like, all right, like just kind of had to move on. Like that beat just died. By the way, other SNL members from Texas, Devin, his castmate.
David
Thomas,
Koechner?
Did you think of one?
David Koechner, maybe?
No, I don't have Koechner on here.
No? Okay. Aristotle,
Noel Wells, Randy Quaid, and who could forget SNL legend Emily Prager.
Love Emily Prager.
Yep. Just what a tenure. But anyway, so looking at his update appearances, he had first 2 as himself. He's had basically 1 a year, and now this year he's had 2. He had the bald man, and then he had the one Thomas was talking about with the puppet. But last year was Remember Lizards, Jadge Mukes joint. The Imagine Dragons parody there. The year before that, just kind of a brief one, beefing with Bowen's Lanternfly at the end of the season premiere. But, not remember from update, 70 pre-tapes. That's about 10.7%. I know I'm saying about these stats. I'm giving you exact percentages. I just say about to make myself look less pitiful. But 10.72% of his time is in pre-tapes, and then update we're talking about right now. 19 minutes, 19 seconds. That's 5.62%. Brad, we also have his line graph, so you can kind of see the rise, the peaks and valleys of his time there. So if he were to, after 5 seasons, walk away, is there a sketch in mind or any appearance from Dismukes that you would say you would point to as like that was my favorite, or anything like that, or moments, or just the comedy itself, the brand?
Yeah,
tough one.
I'm gonna fail this and not pick anything, because I think to my point earlier, like how he can play anything, and so I feel like he's like that go-to. He's that safe valve when you need just anything. So I don't have a good only because it's recent. That weekend update puppet thing was pretty great. It's most recent in my head, but that was a great performance.
And one that he had a battle on to get on. Sorry, Thomas, go ahead.
I said, what about Beep Beep?
Oh, Beep Beep might be mine. I
With
think
Adam
that's
Driver, yeah. I thought that was great. But he had to battle to get the puppet one on, Mike.
Well, yeah, he had tried it out before and had
It had
either
been a
not
few
made
times,
it
right?
or
Yeah.
it got cut. So it was one of those ones that could have been lost to history that we hear about, but luckily we did get it eventually. So I'm looking at one thing I wanted to point out, because I did this with Ego last week. Similar kind of story with big live performer, not known for this aspect, and Andrew Dismukes, same thing. 4 recurring characters, 0 recurring impressions. So I think that says a lot about how great Dismukes is, that we're giving him all this love and all these flowers tonight, who is not known for ever really doing the same thing again. And those 4 recurring characters, like, I kind of challenge you to remember what they were, because they're like unnamed characters. I mean, they have names, but
Like,
they're
did he
not
play the same? Did he play the same character in those Waffle House, like those chaos behind a intimate
no.
moment? Yeah, I'm struggling to think. That's such a
I
testament
can't
to
either.
him.
I know. Yeah.
3 of them. First of all 4 recurring characters. 3 out of the 4 we've seen for the second time this season, so they should be fresh in the memory. But all 4 recurring characters all happened just twice. One happened again in SNL 50 though. So
Yeah, someone said the
bonus.
wedding groom, of course, and the
Yep.
the
Oh,
Domingo
right.
sketches.
That was the one
Yeah,
that happened in SNL 50.
yeah, that
for
was a good
bonus
call
third.
out. Yeah. Yeah, I'm stumped. Some of them I wished would have been brought back, but then there's diminishing returns and all that. I like that he
Yeah.
has like something brings fresh things. Was it the steakhouse? Did they do multiple of those steakhouse sketches?
No, the Den to Day, that one. I think that was the Ariana DeBose.
Yeah, they did it. It got cut. I saw them do it during the Lizzo episode. It might have been cut though from Dress, but
yeah. So maybe
not
he's trying to bring
canon.
some back, but I'm saying this is a positive spin.
I know for sure.
That
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. The other ones where he's the Connor, the son in the Immigrant Dad talk show with Mikey plays the dad. It's kind of the white guy foil to Marcelo in the host. We saw it with Rami Youssef and then with Chappelle this season. And then he was one of the acting students in Marcelo's commercial acting class. And so maybe the only one that we haven't seen this season, but it's happened twice, is kind of, I think, what coined the Dismukes portmanteau there is the soul booth. So the guys singing the phone number. So unnamed character, but it's, it happened twice. So all of them and no recurring impressions. So we saw him open the season as David Muir in the for the politics, the big political rallies. But that's, he's never had an impression come on again.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to think, Mike, that you saved the Dismukes chat for knowing that Banat's coming on the show. Because
what if I did? What would you say then?
I'd say thank you, sir.
Yeah, gotta placate to the guests. It's all about the guests. I want some good feedback. But as far as the trajectory, you can see the line chart. So Andrew, if you're watching, you can put this up in your dressing room and just to get inspired, keep going, getting some 10-minute episodes a couple times now this year, and the SPE. It's a John Schneider special, sketches per episode. Career average 3.0 this season, 4.2. So overall, we're seeing him at least one more time per night, which I think is great. So Brad, final thoughts on our boy Dismukes?
I think he's great. I think I don't want to say underrated, but he's, as you said, slowly been building up, and he's proved himself to be a solid contributor to the show. I hope he stays on for a while.
And I'll challenge you a little bit, just because I know how knowledgeable you are. Is there any SNL cast member in history that you think could have been that? Because sometimes we see people that come on and they have a slow start and they're just not given that opportunity to build on it. So Dismukes could have been like a kind of a failure first season stat wise. He had like the Jack Flat sketch in the Issa Rae episode, and then later that season I mentioned the first update appearance, but like Dismukes basically got kind of shafted first year, but was given time to build. Minute 47, 246, 334, 416, 555. Like next year, could it be 6? I don't know. Is there anybody in history that you can think of I think they had it, but like they just didn't get that second chance?
It's hard to tell. The one person I think of, and I know we just talked about, or we were talking about before we started recording, was Melissa. she's somebody who I loved. And when she left the show, I remember being like, oh, I wish she would have stayed on. I always loved when we saw her. She should have been on more. And I think for whatever reason, if she could have been on longer or had kind of an arc like this, I would have loved it, because she's the one I can remember, at least in recent history, that I remember missing leaving too soon.
I like the poll because I think Melissa did maybe get the chances, but definitely have the opportunities, if I can differentiate chances and opportunities, but because she had a lot of opportunities as far as seasons concerned. So like season 43, I have her at 2 minutes 39, dips down to 2:35. This is screen time per episode in season 44. Season 45 dips down to 1:51. Season 46 dips down lower to 1:19.
I remember her last season watching and being like, where is she? Like, why is she not on the show?
And that was 1:54, the last season, season 47.
Yeah.
I think she would probably admit that she was maybe a little passive behind the scenes and didn't advocate for herself.
Right.
Or didn't, she wasn't as competitive, I think, backstage as a lot of the other, SNL cast members tend to be. So I think she might have got swallowed up a little bit by like the SNL machine. That's my best interpretation of it.
And I think we've seen that. We've heard that on this very show. Like, if you missed the roundtable this week, we had Punky Johnson, SNL cast member, on the roundtable, which is unbelievable to say out loud that we have former cast commenting on current SNL. And
that's
Punky's been
buddy.
Yeah,
Punky.
I know Punky. She's great. Yeah, she was a great episode too.
And she's been open about that. She said it in this very roundtable of the Jon Hamm show. I kind of kept things in my head until they were really fleshed out. I didn't really go to people and say, hey, can you help me write this? Like, comedians say all the time, like, is this something? Do I have something here? And then they need somebody to bounce back the jokes and realize that, oh, you have gold here. Let's make it into a sketch. But Punky has been open that she really wanted to kind of think of a whole thing and then bring her best material and then try to get on the show. And that's not always the best case to do in a collaborative writer's room, Shall we move on to 5 questions, Thomas?
Yeah, let's do it.
Brad?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Question 1. So now Please Don't Destroy. They've just contributed their 5th video of season 50. And it's their 3rd playing characters, like not as themselves. And even the other 2, when they were themselves, they didn't stay in their office. We had the Paul Mescal when they had the whole dream sequence. And then recently we had Mikey Madison when they had the whole HBO SpongeBob show. So Brad, should they continue this trend? If they're, still remaining in SNL, should they continue to try new concepts, new characters, or are they kind of being pigeonholed and better or worse?
The key word is new. Yes, they should. I love the sketch, the pre-tapes they do, like in their office, the writing stuff, but you got to change it up. You got to do different stuff. This was a fun detour. They got to do new stuff.
All right, because I'm hearing the opposite from a lot of people. That's why I'm bringing up to you and Thomas tonight. Is if something is continuing to work, then why change it? But I agree with you, Thomas. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Brad and you. Like, especially if the quality is up to par of this season they've been like out of like playing different characters. Was it the Sound when Shane Gillis hosted?
Yep.
And then the skydiving one with Michael Keaton,
which I loved.
That was great.
That was my favorite of the year for them.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then this week was so good too. This was like a great sketch. So if it's the quality, I think all 3 of them were really fantastic. So I say, heck yeah, like continue to play other characters. I love when they're in the office and they can do their thing. But sometimes, like with the Mikey Madison one, that screamed to me that we had nothing. We got nothing this week. So we're just gonna do this. But, yeah, so they should. If they shouldn't feel compelled to just stay in that office or just play themselves, but branch out a little bit. And I think the results, judging by the sample size of these 3 sketches that they've produced this season, I think all 3 of them have really hit. So I say, yeah, if you can think of great premises and put some quality together, then heck yeah.
Well, I think the 3 of us were just. I was gonna say, Mike, the 3 of us just had a conversation about recurring characters, recurring sketches on another podcast. And we all talked about how you keep going to that well and diminishing returns with the same thing over and over and over again. So you got to throw a curveball in once in a while to keep it fresh.
Definitely. I think the unique point we're making in this, I'm trying to make with this question, is it is a tricky equation when you have to have three. So if we're talking about one writer, one performer, cast member, they can go to, I'm going to, Ego could say, I really want to do Lisa from Declan one more time. Okay. But with them, they're a three-headed monster. They're playing themselves as SNL staffers. They're being writers, and then shenanigans happen. So those are varied. So I want to say they're all the same because every concept is very different than the last. But this one is having a sketch format. You're kind of the depth chart, or the bench is different when you have three being cast in a new pre-tape. So I think it's a little more nuanced than do new versus do old. So that's kind of want to bring it up. So follow-up question, because I think I like what we're saying here. Thomas, is their ceiling like joining the cast, becoming head writers, or leaving the show and kind of like doing movies of their own sketch show, like a Key and Peele, Inside Amy Schumer, or Dave Chappelle kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it would be something outside of the show. Because I think if they joined the cast, I think that would just be on paper more of a distinction than, they're really part of the cast. If you think about it, like we see them enough on screen, we see them do their sketches, like they're part of the cast. So I think that would just be a technicality. I think the next thing for them would be, maybe outside of SNL, maybe do like their own, maybe over the summer they do like a limited variety series or something. I don't know. But I think what's next is like outside of the show, in my opinion.
I did see their live show. I went to meet them at JFL in Montreal with John, and they had like a Q&A, which was moderated by a future cast member, Chloe Trost at the time. And then I flew home to Boston, and I saw their show the next night. They were kind enough to give me some tickets, and it was a really fun show. Like they did all live materials. It was kind of their styles, but just on a stage. So they definitely have room to grow. But Brad, do you have a final thought on what their ceiling could be, whether it's on SNL or post?
As far as SNL, I like them what they're doing, kind of off to the side, like a short film or I like their role in the show. I don't think they would incorporate well into the cast. So as far as the next step, I agree with Thomas. They'd have to step off on their own and do something different.
Fair enough. Question 2. This was kind of a last minute one I thought of this morning. Brad, go to you first again. If we were to make a Venn diagram of 1975 SNL on one side, other side, 2025 SNL, to illustrate just how different the show is, but also the same. Of course, in the middle of the Venn diagram, you'd have sketch comedy, musical performances, guest hosts, almost always Lorne Michaels. There's certain terms you put in that middle Venn diagram. But as far as the other sides, what would be the most glaring difference between 75 and 25?
The difference will be the amount of times you experiment and have no idea what's going to happen on the show, to the cooker cutter. You could almost by the numbers tell what's going to happen every episode.
By the numbers,
as far as programming. Didn't even mean to do that.
Cut that.
But that's,
cut that.
I mean, it's just so cookie cutter now. It's like it's formulaic and there's no deviation from anything. We're back in 75. You had no idea what would happen on a given episode from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, look at by
Are
the
you
numbers.
shaking your head at me?
Me?
No, that one, the other guy.
Thomas, this guy. Oh, go over to Thomas.
I can't. I was shaking my head like internally. I can't believe you caught that. That's really good intuition, Brad. Jeez, I don't have a good poker face.
Your response, Thomas.
No. I think maybe that'll happen sometimes when they're on their 50th season, and it's sort of like almost a well-oiled machine at this point. I think sometimes that can breed some cookie cutter things, and taking less chances and pissing people off a lot less, just kind of comes with the territory of, being that established and being more corporate and having to answer to different entities. But I do agree, like, we see that big difference from 50 years ago to now. One thing that struck me, especially this week, was that modern SNL were a lot nicer nowadays as opposed to 1975, because the great talented actress from The White Lotus did have said that she was like offended. She had an issue with Sarah Sherman's portrayal of her in the White POTUS sketch, and I didn't really think much of it when I was, but maybe I was conditioned to, like, from watching old sketch comedy and old SNL, where they would just sort of like take the low-hanging fruit sometimes and exaggerate people's looks. Because if you watch the show, if you look at the actress, she's really beautiful, but she does have like distinct features. Like her teeth are a distinct feature. Back 75 SNL, 80s SNL would really play that up, people's physical characteristics. Nowadays, not so much. So I think we're a little nicer nowadays, and that's not bad or good. It's just is, I think. And I don't blame her if she didn't like that portrayal of her, but I think that was a really stark difference. It was just like, oh my gosh, yeah, they don't do a lot of that in current SNL anymore, do they?
It's a good point. I think my answer was kind of along the lines of Brad's answer, which is like the variety show aspect. You look at old SNL and you see like guest comics or a second musical guest more often, and it's kind of like fitting that show rundown with, like, it's Albert Brooks and it's Andy Kaufman and it's
It's
Valerie
the Muppets.
Bromfield, and it's kind of just a lot of different stuff in that first show. They were kind enough to re-air the very first show, the October 11th 75 Carlin episode, leading into 50. But I would say, in a good thing, and this is like, the dead honest truth, is that SNL 50 is just way more diverse. So I think that's kind of cool. Is just seeing the different POVs. Like, you heard from Garrett Morris on like Fly on the Wall, or he's done, things like, I didn't know what I was doing there. I was a playwright and I was like the one black guy. And like, now you see these different writers and different performers and just kind of getting a lot of different takes that I think is cool. But I'll move on to question 3. This is more along the lines of, old versus new here. Thomas, I'll start with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to do a 1-for-1 swap, so think about, 2 sports teams that are trading a player. So of course, one team inherits the other team's player, and vice versa. If you had to do a 1-for-1 swap from the current cast to the original cast, what cast members would you trade to try to improve both casts?
Okay.
Not a fleece, as we say in sports.
Not like a Luka Doncic trade.
Yeah, not a Luka AD trade. It's kind of like you want to try to, okay, we're going to help you out. You're going to help us out. Who would you trade from that cast to this cast?
Brad won't be surprised by this answer. I would send Chevy to modern day SNL, and there's a good reason for that.
I can't believe you let him on modern day SNL.
Well, I mean, it would stir things up backstage, to say the least. But I think the current cast is lacking, like, and this is a dumb term, but like an alpha kind of like, I think Beck Bennett, like the roles that Beck Bennett used to play real well. I think they're kind of lacking somebody like that, like a believable, confident idiot, somebody who's believable as like a dad or something. Like, I think I've mentioned it before. I think Shane Gillis would have been really good in those roles. I think that was kind of like his spot. And I don't think they've replaced Beck in those roles. So I think Chevy can do something like that. So I'd send Chevy off of the original cast. Maybe John would feel more at ease backstage. Belushi would be, I would send Ego actually to the original cast, because we mentioned Garrett was you said black guy. He was the only black person on the show. So I think adding
we did
Ego,
not get a black woman for quite some time.
Oh, no,
Yvonne Hudson.
Yeah, no, he would get sick of it. They would cast him as every black lady. Keenan, I know, got sick of it, of course, famously. I know Garrett would get sick of that. So, like, I think they would need somebody like Ego to go. I think she would really help the 75 cast.
I will say, just for the people at home, for the folks at home listening, we're taking the 75 version. So we're not putting 80 something Chevy.
No, it's 75 Chevy.
Yeah, we're putting we're putting
Thomas likes
pratfall,
just slightly more than 80s Chevy, just slightly.
Yeah,
I like movies Chevy. I don't really love SNL Chevy. I like movies Chevy.
Yeah, National Lampoon Chevy arriving, to play with Quinta Brunson and Benson Boone a couple weeks from now, and Ego going back to 75. Brad, what do you think?
I can't make this trade, only because the original cast only had 7 people. And this cast outnumbers them by almost 3 times as many. So I don't think you could do a 1-for-1 in any kind of fairness. That being said, if I were to add one either way, I agree with Thomas, Ego, in a heartbeat. One, I think she's fantastic. She's totally great. But to everything Thomas said, it would A, get Garrett out of drag, and B, just give them more things to do in that era of couples and just characters. So Ego and the original cast would be fantastic. And I'd send Jon to the new cast or the current cast, and only because, and we talk about this a lot and I get made fun of it, but like Jon had that intangible sense of danger that I don't think the show has anymore. Again, it's cookie cutter. You know where it's going. They don't want to ruffle feathers. And granted, it was a different time 50 years ago, but Jon kind of embodied that live danger where like the kids taking over the station kind of thing. Like, I don't know. I think that kind of a vibe today would be great. So I don't know if it's a direct swap, but that's who I would put in each one.
So I'm kind of right in the middle of you guys. I had Belushi for Keenan, straight up. I just figured that if you put someone with Keenan's abilities of, he could be the A player, he could be the B player, he could react, he could do, he can dabble in impressions and characters, but he really is a punch-up guy and an energy guy. Putting him back in that cast, which they did make that update joke or on SNL 50 of showing Keenan photoshopped into the original cast. So I guess we can picture it because the picture's out there. And then the same reasons Brad said. I just think that the Belushi energy would be fantastic, and I hope that they get someone like that, because it's Belushi, you could call him one of a kind, but that spirit isn't one of a kind. So I would I hope someone in the future could be like that. But yeah, it's Belushi for Keenan. No draft picks, just straight up. All right, yeah, I thought that was a fun one for you guys. Yeah. All right, so over to question 4. This season we've had 5 people joining the 4-timers club. That's Michael Keaton, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Jack Black, and Jon Hamm. Brad, I want you to rank them from the least to most deserving of the 5-timers jacket. So we might see all of them get a 5-timers jacket. We saw Marty Short get one this year. So they could all be on the table. Some of them are at different ages in their careers and stuff. But how would you rank Keaton, Rock, Chappelle, Black, and Hamm?
Keaton is my 5th. I think I put Rock is 4, Chappelle 3. I put Jon Hamm at 2, and I think Jack Black number 1. But it's very close. Hamm and Black are very close.
Almost went chronological right there. Thomas, different than Brad?
Yeah, maybe slightly. I would go Michael Keaton 5. Tough between. I would go Chappelle 4. And I've been more of a Chappelle fan and backer of his hosting gigs than a lot of people, but I would still place him at 4 because I want to give Chris Rock, make him a 5-timer, and probably honestly to maybe undo some of the injustice from when he was a cast member, and he didn't really get pushed, and maybe sketch wasn't totally right for him, but I think Rock got sidelined a lot, and it's really nice to see that he's still a friend of the show, and I would love to see him be a 5-timer to get that just due. So I'd put Rock at 3, Jack Black at 2. I'm wondering, Brad, is it because Jack Black hosted before Jon Hamm? Does he have more of a legacy to stand on than Jon Hamm? It is close.
I think it's a personal thing too. Jack Black hit me younger, so I was bigger Jack Black fan when I was younger, so I want to see that come through. Like I enjoy the Jack. I love his energy on the show, and I think it's just a
Yeah.
personal thing. Where if I was a little bit younger and Jack Black was a little bit before my time, I'd probably go Ham. But
Yeah.
Jack Black, Tenacious D, that era, I just love Jack Black so much.
And he hosted maybe in the running for the greatest episode of all time, at the Christmas episode in 05. So I would do Jack Black 2, and then Jon Hamm number 1. Let's get him back, 5-timer next season.
Yeah, I think that of the 5 we listed, because they all hosted this season, so that's why we're doing this, is a lot of them, I think they're all deserving in some different degree. For me, I'm going to go top to bottom, and I approached it as, think about the 5-timer sketches, you know, when they're all wearing the jackets. We saw one this year, and you see the people come in, whether it was the Mulaney one a couple of years ago or this season's Marty Short one, and kind of like who belongs. It's kind of a different way of looking at it, whether than as opposed to their episodes, is like belonging in SNL lore and history of, you know, you can look at that, you know, they had the stockings this time with all the initials, and there's a couple names on there. I'm not going to name any of them, but you're like, oh, they're a 5-timer. Like, doesn't really feel like they should be. And none of them, I think, are bad hosts by any measure. But I'm going to put Jon Hamm first because I think he could have been at 8 or 9 times by now. So it feels the most ripe for me to say Jon Hamm 1. And I'm going to put Chappelle 2, just because of the legacy of his appearances and the momentous, like the volition, the energy that came with a Chappelle night. I'm going to put Chris Rock 3, Jack Black 4, and Keaton 5. And I like all those guys. So thanks everyone in the chat for answering as well. Last question.
A quick question.
Yes, please.
Who do you think gets in first? Because I think Dave Chappelle, out of that 5, Dave Chappelle is the next one that gets in. Thoughts?
Well, you know, that if we bring him back for the midterm in 2026,
yeah, I think
circle on the calendar in November.
Yeah, not to spoil anything from the Lorne book back here, but you can tell that Lorne really pushed for Chappelle and really values a Dave Chappelle appearance on the show. So I can see Lorne really pushing to get Chappelle back on like as soon as possible. So I agree with Brad. I think
Agreed.
Chappelle, and then I think Jon Hamm would probably be after that.
And Chappelle, to our point here, is the only one that I think you can kind of, if he's down and willing to do it, like you could circle a date. Whereas the other ones, I think they'd all be invited back. You know, Michael Keaton being the oldest, so I think that's the least likely. But it kind of depends on their projects. Where Chappelle is, yeah, as Lorne gets up there in age and wants that buzz and that, you know, that energy in the room and on the TV and getting the millions of viewers that you don't normally get, it's got to be Chappelle. Final question. So in the same spirit, we're getting to the end. Can you believe it? Season 50, only 3 episodes left. We do know the host of the next episodes. We don't know it's Quinta Brunson, but episode 19 and then the finale, we do not know. So based on that data, out of 18 hosts, 14 have been returning hosts, including 3 SNL alums, Marty Short, Chris Rock, and I'll throw John Mulaney as an alum of the show, not a cast member, but a writer. Thomas, do you have the bookings of season 50 with now seeing the special in the rear view? Have they met the moment of the season to you?
It depends on your expectations, but for me, they have. Because I think you know, we played fan fiction coming into this season, so we're like, oh, they should book like everybody, it should be all 5-timers or all, you know. But realistically, I think it has met the moment. There's only 3 hosts that I thought were maybe a little out of place, but they were understandable. Like Jean Smart initially, I think that episode had weird energy, and I think maybe she had weird energy, but I can see why they booked her. She's like beloved. Charlie XCX was maybe a little out there for me, and Paul Mescal. Again, understandable why they were all booked, but those were the only 3 to me that didn't quote unquote maybe meet the moment. But if you look from like the Chris Rock episode, episode 9 to Quinta Brunson, so those 10 episodes, it's just like meet the moment. And I know, like, you know, people will quibble with Shane Gillis, but I think like that was a meet the moment kind of booking as well. Lady Gaga, Mikey Madison, Oscar winner, Jack Black, Jon Hamm. Like, I think the last 10 episodes, they've like really knocked it out of the park with booking. So as far as I'm concerned, I think they have met the moment.
Yeah, and the ones that you called out, besides Mikey Madison, who just won, Best Actress Oscar, were the first timers, with Gene Smart, Charlie XCX, Paul Mescal, and then Mikey in this last run. And then, we had Chalamet come back for a third time and doing double duty, which just kind of felt a little vintage and a little weird, which I loved. So yeah, Brad, what do you think? And maybe if you can, if you had some fanfic, if you were writing the script for 50, how would it alter if you kind of have the same vibe as Thomas?
Yeah, I don't know how much it would have altered, or I'm probably not the best person to say how I'd alter. But no, I mean, I always thought they'd do season 50 like a normal season. They really wouldn't go crazy. They wouldn't be doing this, retro throughout the season. They would just treat it like a normal season. And I feel like they did that. A lot of familiar faces back again, good or bad. Maybe you could have found one or two kind of upstarts that we didn't know, or surprise hosts. But I think for the most part, it's kind of par for the course. They did a good job.
And I feel like I'd be remiss as a host to not follow up with these two gentlemen right now to say, talk about fanfic, and there's only 2 question marks left. One of them being the finale. Brad, don't give me a prediction. Give me a wish list for a finale host of SNL 50, and then we should go back to programming as usual with season 51.
I don't think they'll change, though. I mean, I don't think they've done it all seasons. I think you're just going to get not a standard, but a quality season finale. I'd love Bill Murray. I know Bill's got a movie out that he's been plugging like hell, so it'd be great to see Bill Murray do the finale. And he keeps hinting when he's on that he's going to come back. So, although when he comes back and hosts, they're not the great episodes. So it's like, I don't know, double-edged sword. But I'd love to see Bill Murray or Seth Rogen. He's got that great show. The studio is really good, and he's never been on. I think Seth Rogen would be a great kind of like new face on the show, and he's got a lot of buzz going on right now. They'd be my 2 picks.
All right, I like those picks, and Bill Murray has said publicly that he would do it. So check that box off already. That he's not, he won't say no if he's saying he's willing to do it. And for me, I mean, Brad, are you saying about business as usual? I mean, 14 out of 18 being returning. I feel like that's not business as usual. If they're really doing, some alumni and returning, including a 5-timer, and the 5 4-timers are named. So I'll go and let Thomas wrap it up tonight. But I would say,
argue it's safe. That number of returners is more safe than celebratory.
Isn't safe a good thing though when it's quality? I mean, I think I would push for that in the booking department to get safe hosts create good shows more than unsafe hosts. But I would say Andy Samberg, I would say Dana Carvey, or Mike Myers. I would say the people that have been in the building that like, let's wrap it up with a bow. Like, let's go with a bang. They've come back. They've played in the sandbox with this cast, and let's just see how it looks and say goodnight and have a good summer, guys. So Thomas, what do you think?
Yeah, isn't part of the celebratory nature of it all bringing people back? So I don't know. That would be hard to like not play it safe and bring a lot of first timers, but also celebrate the show. It seems that would be kind of a tricky dance. I think I would bring back Eddie Murphy to host, and Tom Hanks. Give me the greatest of all time for me personally, to round out season 50. So Eddie Murphy, Tom Hanks, and I'm a happy camper. That's all you have to do. I'm not asking.
Well,
yeah, I mean, we're going wish list and not prediction. Then I love those picks, and I can't let this go by and not say Steve Martin's name. So I want to put that out there, because if I've already seen the last Steve Martin hosted episode, then I'm going to be a sad SNL fan. So give me Steve Martin one more time, whether it be now or later. Let's move on.
After you said it, though,
go ahead.
Dana Carvey, Mike Myers together would be amazing.
Oh, so good. Party on. Okay, so let's go to the SNL Power Rankings. We have so much data now. I love to see this chart. Going into the season, I get so excited to see how it will shake out. And then we get here to the spring, and I'm like, wow, this is it. This is really what this season looked like, because it's so hard to remember every single sketch, every breakout moment over 17 episodes. And, I'll look up in a minute how many segments we've seen this season to remember all of it. So here we go with 17 episodes down. The average score of every cast member, taking into consideration every appearance, every second of screen time, and the weighted average of all of that. Bowen Yang, number one still. He's at an 87.2. He's been just about average for him anyway, which is a high average the past 2 weeks. Right behind him, though, a guy we talked about at length tonight, Andrew Dismukes, 86.1. So I'm going to interrupt real quick. And Brad, do you think that Andrew Dismukes or Sarah Sherman at 86.0 could jump Bowen Yang? And would that be weird to you?
I don't think they will. I don't know why in my gut. I feel like Bowen will find a way to like shine the last few episodes. So I think Bowen will hold on to it.
Thomas, I want to go to you because this has been a storyline that's been gaining traction on By the Numbers.
Yeah. I think Bowen will hold on to it. I think Sarah will probably overtake Andrew. So I think we'll see Bowen and Sarah as the top two. Talk about somebody who's turned into a friggin' rock on the show. Sarah Sherman, man. I thought, people were trying to pigeonhole her as like, oh, she's just the weird girl and she's going to be doing all these sketches that are like outside the box and, can we even air a lot of her stuff on SNL, but she's really turned into like a total package kind of cast member. So I like how her career's gone. I think Bowen and Sarah will end up being the top two.
So that we just like season 49, we have this. I said it so many times last year, 3-horse race. Bowen, Andrew, Sarah with a margin of difference of 1.2. Bowen 87.2, Andrew 86.1, Sarah 86.0. And to Thomas's point, Sarah Sherman only had 2 like subpar numbers episodes. They were the first 2. We had peak political content, Trump and Harris and Doug Emhoff and Tim Walz and all those impressions. And Sarah hasn't took her foot off the pedal really since. So Sarah Sherman is like really competing with Bowen big time for that top spot. Dismukes only had really 1 down week all year. And the same thing as the first 2 episodes were kind of like below average for him. Going after the top 3 is Colin Jost, 82.0. Kind of just hard to beat Colin Jost screen time. He's leading the cast in screen time and just kind of, as we might say, curtain call for Jost and Che. Could see, big joke swap at the end of the year regardless. And Colin Jost, can't count him out, but too late in the season to say he'll be threatening for top 3 or number 1 spot. Ega Wodum up to number 5 now with 4 great weeks in a row, 79.8. Heidi dipped down a little bit on these past 3 shows, 77.2, but she's at number 6. James Austin Johnson, 75.2, is at number 7. Mikey Day up 73.8 is his average now with a huge week. Of course, that cold open helped racking up that garbage time, Brad. It really helped him out. So huge week, brought him to a 73.8. Marcelo Hernandez, who was the story of the season, really, as far as gaining on the leaderboard, finally had a come back to earth week and dropped down to number 9, but safe top 10 for sure for Marcelo, 73.2. Kenan Thompson is kind of like safely in this 10 spot. Really far away from Marcelo at 9 and really ahead of Che at 11. Che's at 57.7. That's the Che line, I say, is like a 58, 59. It's kind of where Che lives, kind of on his own island right there because doesn't really go anywhere else in the show. And one of the cast members who's never said live from New York. So I'd love if Che has 3 more episodes in the tank. Let's give us a Che live from New York, please. That would be great. Chloe Fineman at number 12. 54.3, big drop off to the bottom of the cast. Number 13, Michael Longfellow, 45.5. Ashley Padilla at 14th, 44.4. That's a race to watch. Ashley Padilla could jump 2 of the new promotions, could jump Devin and Longfellow and go up to top 13, top 12. Emil Joaquim, huge week, best of the season, 42.1. Had his highest screen time of his career this week. Jane Wickline, 16th place, 38.8, who is 0.6 points ahead of last place. Devin Walker, 38.2. Thomas, what do you think about the bottom of the list and the kind of those middle races there that we might see really heat up in the final moments?
Yeah, well, first of all, I need an update on our cast member draft. Mike, at some point. As I know I have Ashley on my team, but I honestly couldn't. I forgot who else I had.
I
So,
can't update you then.
I know. So I need to get sometime this week. I want to find out where I
Yeah,
sat.
so send me your
Champion,
picks.
defending champion, actually.
What was the prize?
That I got to pick the order for this year's draft. Just power, which is Brad knows that's the best prize you can give.
Drunk with power, Thomas.
That is what he looks for.
Thank you, sir. As far as the bottom of this list goes, I know somebody has to be last, right? But I'm still worried about Devin, because I think it seems like he hasn't broken out with any sort of character, with any, like, I don't really know his voice yet. And he's, with Ashley, well, Ashley you've already talked about, not worried about her at all. Even Emil and Jane has like something distinct about her that I can point to and say that's what Jane does, or that's kind of her thing. Devin, I still don't really feel like I know him real well. And him being last place on here, I'm genuinely a little worried about Devin, kind of like flailing in the wind a little bit, and I root for him.
Yeah, it's been kind of a danger watch pause because of the anniversary season, but I think an overhaul kind of puts danger watch on anyone down low, because we've kind of seen these redemption arcs and even seen like a Punky or a Melissa get more seasons because of they bring something different than other cast members, and kind of waiting out the 80 Kate, Cecily, Pete, Moffat, Beck, Kyle, that whole crop right there. So I think it's going to be a race to the finish to kind of get one or two, or at least, with 3 episodes left, only one maybe moment to kind of separate it. So maybe Emil got his, but Brad, what do you think?
I'm interested to see Sarah, Andrew. I think Sarah will pull up and take that number 2 spot. That Mikey Marcello is interesting. Interesting to see if Mikey has a push at the end and he can edge Marcello out and take that number 8 spot a little bit. And I'm also interested to see where Ashley goes. I think this was a great week for her, and I think she, aside from that last week 16 where she was low, she's had 4 or 5 weeks in a row really, really well. So I'm intrigued to see if she can climb up a little bit higher.
Definitely. Well, you know where to find it on By the Numbers. 3 more weeks till we crown the champion, and maybe they'll get the triple crown of screen time, appearances, and power ranking. So we have seen it happen in years past. But looking ahead to next episode, which is going to be in a couple weeks, Quinta Brunson back, which was a very lauded episode, despite being the 20th lowest screen time of a host of all the episodes I have data on, which includes, SNL at Home and Paul Rudd Omicron episode. Quinta Brunson registering a 15-minute, 58-second hosting appearance in that week. And she's back. I think it's a friend of the show, was at SNL 50, much like, Lady Gaga was in the crowd. Jack Black might have been there. I forget. Jon Hamm, of course, was there. And, we've seen people come back, and Quinta Brunson being the next one here. So, Brad, do you have fond memories of Quinta last time?
Yeah, she's a good host. She'd be fun to come back. She did a good job.
Yeah, that was season 48, episode 16. So similar time of the year. Funny, I've been tracking these stats, and a lot of people come back around the same time of the year, like Bill Burr and Bargatze. I mentioned Lizzo being on this day a couple of years ago when Thomas was in the crowd. So, people have these kind of seasons where maybe they have a lull in the schedule, and Quinta was kind enough to come back to 8H and do that. So, Thomas, final thoughts, predictions, anything for Quinta Brunson and Benson Boone coming up?
Yeah, no idea who Benson Boone is. I'm sure
thank you.
they're fantastic. So looking, maybe I'll discover like my new favorite artist on Saturday. We'll see. As far as Quinta goes, I think she'll get more to do, or maybe not more to, like maybe more screen time. I think with her, it was similar to Jon Hamm this week. It was like, I'm surprised that she had such little screen time, because my memory of her, I think she really put her stamp on her last episode. Definitely, of course, a friend of the show. SNL loves her. She has a sketch background. Some people realize it. I think a lot of us comedy nerds realize that she was in a Black Lady sketch show on HBO before Abbott Elementary. So she has those chops. She has those comedy and sketch chops. So I think this is going to be a really good week. I'm glad she's back.
Same. A underrated sketch I remember was the bathroom drug deal sketch, and Quinta Brunson being very diminutive woman next to was it Devin and Michael Longfellow being in the wall as the black tar heroin dealer. He's kind of had the Gautier kind of thing painted into the wall. That was a great one. And of course, everyone remembers the traffic altercation with Mikey. So they brought that back with Martin Short. They've now recurred a bunch of her sketches. So she really hit, the iron was hot in the writer's room when she came there, because they had that couples, the cards, they're flipping the cards with the husbands of the boyfriends having the long descriptions. They brought it back with Rami Youssef. And then, we've seen that now 2 more this season. So we could have a good recurring week. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. But a host that I'm glad is a friend of the show. I mentioned this recently. This is only the 3rd Black woman who's hosted SNL twice, which I think is sad and interesting. It's been Queen Latifah, Maya Rudolph, and now Quinta Brunson. So, there's been plenty more funny ladies who have been there. I've seen Tiffany Haddish. We've seen Issa Rae. I'm trying to think of recent memory. But so Quinta Brunson being one that's coming back. So I'm really happy to see it. I'm super excited for this show and kind of kicking off the last run. So talking about what's happening on the SNN, I want to thank our presenting sponsor, LateNighter.com. But check out the Joe Piscopo SNL stories we just had. Joe Piscopo just so down, was so happy to chat, told some awesome stories. I tuned in live. Couldn't wait to see Joe. Huge Piscopo guy. If you go back and watch those 80s SNL. And coming up soon, we have our patron feedback show. So the form is out for our patrons to sign up and come on live with us and chat. So with John and some other great patrons. And yeah, can't wait for this next run. Thomas, thank you so much for coming back. What do you have going on?
Yeah, that was a blast, man. Mike, thank you so much for having me as always.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing some podcasting, of course. I have Pop Culture 5. It's a podcast that Jeremy Dove and I do. We talk about the 5 essentials of any given pop culture category. So today we did 5 essential Gene Hackman movies to honor a great actor who recently passed away. We have an SNL related one coming up in time for Mother's Day and the end of season 50 of SNL. We're doing Women of SNL. So it's female cast members. So we're going to be celebrating all the talented women over at SNL. And I'm also do something on the Not Ready for Primetime project, Bill Swirsky's Tournament Talk. So I host that show when Bill Swirsky's not available. I substitute for Bill and I take over the reins and host that show. We break down moments in SNL in bracket form, in tournament form. And that's been a lot of fun to play traffic cop and wrangle all the crazy kids that come on the show, including Mike Murray.
I was there. You want to plug that show, Brad?
Yeah, check it out tomorrow. Yeah, Thomas is hosting Tournament Talk. It'll drop tomorrow. We're talking best recurring characters. Mike Murray's on with us.
Yeah, it was a great time. Had a great bracket, some great panelists, and I think we came to the right conclusion. So, I won't spoil it, but make your own bracket. Have fun at home. Follow along with us. But Thomas, did you already pick your top 5 females of SNL?
So we're recording a little behind the scenes. We're recording in 2 days. So we're recording this episode on Friday, and I still don't really totally know where I'm going with this at all. So I'm stressing, man.
You have 56 to choose from. So
yeah, 56. Jeez, yeah. No, I told Jeremy we're gonna be leaving off some amazing women. Our honorable mention segment is gonna go long on this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you have me on for pop culture 25, then I'll I can give you my top 25. But yeah, right. It's tough to narrow down to 5 right there. So yeah. Anyway, good timing, Brad. If you tune in and see Thomas and Brad and myself, and you can tune in and see the 3 of us again on the Not Ready for Primetime project. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to our patrons. I love you dearly. Please let me know if there's some end of year wrap up stuff that you want on the show, because I will be looking forward to the end of year show, the marathon show. We go through every cast member and all the stats. So if you like the Andrew segment tonight or the Ego segment last week, we'll be looking at the entire season of SNL 50 and breaking it all down for you. So for Thomas Sena, Brad Robinson, I am Mike Murray. This is the SNN